Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome along to SimRacingOnline, the home of sim racing. And tonight you join us in Assetto Corsa Competizione for the 5th round of the FKR Tuesday Night Racing League, organised on simracingonline.co.uk, and tonight hosted by myself, Ike Sky, as we burst into the qualifying session, currently sitting on board with Roberto Barley here, but that will probably not stay for long. Very long pit lane. I'll tell you what we're going to do as Barley leaves the pit lane now. Due to the setup of the of how the Blancpain Endurance Championship runs, they do need to use the full pits for this run out of pit lane, which is going to be an interesting penalty and massive bother for all of the drivers. You can see how slow the 12 car is rolling down pit lane already, and not even getting into any action yet. This is going to be a massive calculation that everybody has to consider when it comes to making pit stops and whether they need to. Obviously there will be times when it is needed, but unnecessary pit stops, you're going to see a lot of cars potentially carrying around damage, as now the 12 is released onto a lonely Spa-Francorchamps circuit around the outside of Radion and merges onto the track. Another very dangerous space to be in when we're talking about in the race. But let us not focus on Barley for the time being. The man who we want to be looking at the moment is this man Williams in the brightly coloured Ferrari, who is currently the championship leader. His second place last time out at Kalami earned him the lead of the championship. Currently the red exhaust glowing beautifully there in the shade of the forests here at Spa. And as beautiful as ACC is, it is a challenge on some systems to get it to run. Qualifying is going to be a fairly swift affair, with the track being as long as it is. Even with the 15 minutes that the drivers are given, they're not going to get that many laps. 5 laps tops, and that's assuming that there's no missteps, mistakes, or just running out of tyres. As up through the last sector towards the bus stop, Williams looks like he was trying to get some space to himself there, as perhaps he was catching up on some other drivers trying to do the same. As out onto the start-finish straight he comes to start the first of his timed laps. A lot of competition here, even though there are only 12 cars. The gaps have been extraordinarily tight the entire season, and it has been a case of each driver perhaps feeling a little bit more comfortable at any one particular track. This is no doubt going to be a favourite for quite a few people. This classic Formula 1 track that has been modified and changed, but the roots of it, I'm doing really well with names tonight. The bus stop chicane nearing the end of the lap that was added in the late 1970s, if I'm remembering correctly. It has been a while. And the La Source set. No, come on. Is La Source? No? Yeah, it is La Source. Rouge and Radion, obviously I can remember. It was the hairpin that just couldn't quite place. Well done, me. And then the Camel Straight, which Andy Williams has well and truly gone past. There we go. Names are now coming back to me. Used to driving this, not commentating over others driving it. Very much gives the desire to be out there rather than up here, as there are no times coming in yet. Let's have a look. Bjorn is coming up to the end of the lap now. Gutierrez goes to the top of the timesheet, so first across the line there is Johansson in the 333 comes across the line. Goes provisionally second for the time being. Come on. Technology is great sometimes. Right. We'll use this for the time being. 6 drivers across the line. Milliken 5th. Hines 6th at the moment. 6 seconds off, so perhaps a mistake for Milliken in the 720S. Near the top of the timesheets, it's Gutierrez, Barley and Williams separated by 7/10 in total. Gutierrez has set a pretty decent lap time in that Continental GT, so perhaps the Continental being a bit happier here. As the game has decided it doesn't want to work. Interesting. I love it when these things happen. Are we back? It appears not. There we go. That'll do for the time being while I get everything else. What on earth is going on here? We'll take that. That is working for now. As I was saying, Gutierrez at the top of the timesheets with that 2-minute 20, 7/10 behind in the 2 Ferraris. So again, the Ferraris seeming to be quite happy at the Spa-Francorchamps circuit. Williams and Barley currently holding their own. But now Williams going to the top of the timesheets, just completing his lap. There we go. Nice long shot as they come down the endurance start-finish straight. There we go. Split times, finally. Oh, as Gutierrez in the 7 is in second by a 10th. There we go. We now have split times to work with. Good grief, sometimes these games. And the whole pack looking to get a little bit closer now. Milliken has set a slightly more representative time in the 720S and a few lap times yet to come in. That 10th place, Ed Jones not leaving the pits yet, and Geimer 2 sat waiting for either the end of the session or something else. Yates coming up to the bus stop chicane, relatively recently modified to shorten the lap slightly. And goes 8th first lap out of the gates, 4 seconds off the pace of Williams in the 22 car, but in amongst a few different cars there, so could be an interesting battle to watch as the race unfolds. As always, a very complicated start for any race start at Spa-Francorchamps. Whichever start line you go from, you've got the La Source hairpin, or you come straight into a Rouge and a Raidillon. So a lot of issues to be worked out through the course of this half-hour race. And not all of them necessarily of the driver's making. Through Le Calm and getting it all sorts of wrong in the 24 car, that will put a dampener on Yates' spirit as he rolls out wide. I think there's 3 minutes left to go, so I can't imagine that he's jumping back in yet. Grewcock is going faster in the 42 car by 6/10 at the moment. 6/10 would do no harm to him whatsoever, get him a lot closer to Johnson in the number 11 Aston. Great to see Bentley represented here 2 times over as well. And some lovely theming. I wonder if that might be a variation on the Golf livery for Grewcock. Coming down the hill through Lafangna and then down towards Campus, the lowest point of the circuit. Let's jump on with the Bentley, because the Bentley sounds absolutely fantastic anyway. Don't really need an excuse for that. But this stretch now is all uphill, up here, through Paul Frere, Blanchimont, and then up through the bus stop. I'm going to leave you with Grewcock's Bentley roaring up the hill. Even got a bit of the tyre squeal there from the tortured tyres. In the end, only 4/10 gained by Grewcock, but still puts him darn sight closer to that 4th place, and perhaps the more advantageous part of the circuit to be on. Beautiful sight through that rear view camera, let's call it, for realism purposes. All on his own as well. Beautiful space around Grewcock at the moment. In fact, I don't think anybody's suffering overly. Yates is at half a second up already on his previous time. Coming down though, not quite as good an exit out of La Source. See if he can do well through Raidillon, which is by far the most important corner up this straight. Seems to have drawn equal. But with a minute left to go in qualifying, this is going to be it's approaching do or die moments. Milliken, Wenham, and Jones. Jones is leaving the pits with a minute to go. That's, I believe the word for that is too little too late, unfortunately. Unless he's just doing some final testing. 24 car of Yates, 2.2 up at the moment. There's still a long way to fall. And even further to climb. 20 seconds to go. So, who is still out on the circuit? Williams at the top is still looking to improve. Not happy with his time at the moment. Grewcock in the 42, looking like he's not improving at the moment. Johansson in the 333 starts off so well. Can he improve coming over the line? That is the end of the session now. And it's run sprint, drive to the line. He improved, but not enough to get in front of the McLaren of Milliken. Yates is still coming up the hill. Williams is behind, only just starting to come down the hill. Yates again up to the chicane. We'll just get a nice, there we go, nice high view through the chicane and across the line. Did he get a good drive out of the corner? No, he didn't, and won't improve. Unfortunately, Geimer looks to be out. Yeah, Geimer's out as well. That's interesting. Not going to be getting a time in there. But Owen Williams has given up. Yates still out on track, and Geimer circulating the 75. That's a weird one. I'm guessing there's something we don't know about with those last two drivers, either lack of preparation or there could be penalties being applied here as well. Nonetheless, see if he makes it into, see if he darts for the pit lane or if he goes across the start-finish line. He will go for the finish line, and one would assume escape back to the pits. That is the end of the session. Congratulations to Williams taking the pole by a mere 1/10 of a second to Gutierrez. Third will be Barley off the line, and Johnson will be fourth. Fifth will be Grucock. Milliken will start halfway in the middle in that McLaren in sixth. Johansson in seventh. Yates will start eighth. Geimer in ninth. Wenham in 10th. 11th will be Hines, and Jones will start in 21st. I'm seeing out displayed next to him for some reason. I find that he's on the grid. Unless, here we go. So what we're going to see here is a foreshortened formation lap where the drivers essentially crawl to the endurance start line and then go. A very difficult proposition for both Williams and Gutierrez, with the first real corner of the track being the left-hander of Eau Rouge. The left-right of Eau Rouge. And Radion will put those two together. Can the Bentley get off the line quicker than the Ferrari? Can the Ferrari stave off the attack of that hulking Bentley? He does have backup in the form of Barley, who is going to form our camera car to give us a nice, reasonable view. Let's get a nice high view as well for you. It's not going to be too long until helicopters are going to be replaced with drones, and isn't that going to be a much more annoying noise? With 17 seconds before the race starts, you can see our first 6 to 8 drivers. It's going to be a very, very interesting start on the run down the hill. The Bentley has got a lot of horsepower. How it compares to the Ferrari in a straight line, who definitely has the aero advantage, we'll have to see. The engines rise. The drivers all make their way off the grid as Williams is going quite slowly. I can only assume that they're going to tighten up come the start grid, and they do. There we go. What a scattering of cars they are. Right, now, everybody group up. Let's get this nice tight formation. The 24 car almost makes contact with the 22 on the formation. Williams is holding them very, very slowly, coming to the green light. And you will see the flag wave. The lights go green at the top of your screen now, and the drivers are free to go. The Bentley gets a monster start up the inside of the Ferrari and through into the lead, up through Radion Eau Rouge. That is not going to help him in the long term, because now Williams has the slipstream of the Bentley coming up towards Lecomte, but it doesn't make any difference whatsoever. The Ferraris are closing up together, and under braking, the Ferrari massively pulls up on the Bentley, but that is all she wrote for the time being in the lead. But that was a monster start by the Bentley. Really impressed there, and that lead is starting to open up, I dare say. There is an argument to say that that is a comfortable lead for the time being for Gutierrez in the Bentley. Further down the field, well, not very much further down the field. Once again, this battle for third, fourth and fifth is going to be one to watch throughout the entire race, as the mix of makes and drivers go at it, coming down the hill for the first time under racing conditions. Bentley looking quite strong under brakes, as does the Ferrari, but let's see when that Aston is making its pace. Oh, that Ferrari seems to stretch its legs just a little bit. On the straights, maybe the Ferrari's running lower downforce as the Bentley goes for a dive up the inside. I don't think he's quite there yet, but he's definitely now in the mirrors of Johnson in the number 11 car. One lap approaching completion, and Milliken drops into the pits for a drive-through. Assumedly that is for contact, or perhaps just something else that we missed. Accelerating prior to the green flag being shown, perhaps. Let's have a look further down the field. Milliken's going to get dropped right to the back of the field here. That's such a shame for him. We should be able to expect him further up the field come the end of the race. That's something that's going to end up with penalties being handed out during this race as well, with people cutting across the inside of Radion over the top of the hill. You've got to watch that. There are sensors on the inside and you will get pinged for it if you aren't careful. That Aston looking quite handy now come the top of the hill. I wonder if the Ferrari is not quite as happy in the higher downforce corners. That would make sense if the Aston is running a higher downforce setting. Johnson's going to be able to hold a much higher speed through Eau Rouge and Radion. Down the hill, Barley's able to hold his own with the 42 of Grucock just drifting off the back of these two, and that's a bit of a shame to see. Gutierrez, meanwhile, has checked out with 2 laps, 1.5 laps even, completed 1.3 seconds to the good in those beautiful Bentley colours. And you have to question if this is going to be a pattern throughout the whole race. Is Gutierrez running at a comfortable pace? He looks comfortable enough there at the moment. Let's ride on board with him. Have a look at those steering inputs from the Bentley driver. Coming up to the source, lovely and smooth, just over 90 degrees lock, and just the tiniest hint of oversteer under throttle from such a low speed. That's unsurprising, but now look as he goes through Eau Rouge, cuts across the inside, feathers the throttle just slightly and measures the cut across Radion to perfection. Then the relatively dull, it's almost a brake, being able to just apply the throttle and rattle up through what's left of your gears before you get to the right left of Lacombe and Melmedi. Now down the hill through Bruxelles. Weird corner, Bruxelles. You can take more or less any corner and you're not going to lose any time if you've got a reasonably well sorted car. A hint of oversteer as Gutierrez tries to apply the throttle a little bit too early there. But all looking very smooth and quite dominant here at the moment for the Bentley driver of Gutierrez. And Yates was close to the back of... Oh, it's Milliken. Milliken is still out. Wow, running massively in arrears. First split will be at the end of this straight. What is the time that he has to claw back? What I was saying before about the pit lane being an especially harsh penalty to be handed out. 53 seconds from the middle of the pack. And that is time that he has to make up. It's going to be a lonely race for the 56 car, it seems. But with it being such a long lap, let's jump to the leader just briefly. He is not going to be getting lapped this race. That is about half a lap apart between the leader and the last place car of Milliken at the moment. Across the line, Johnson still trying to keep tabs, but dropped a long way back in that last sector. A bit of comfort to Grucock behind, but that is 8 minutes gone of this half-hour race. And Wenham, it seems like Wenham is starting to put the screws on Jones in the 21 car. He actually isn't that far off Johansson in the 333. Perhaps these cars getting their tyres up to temperature are now starting to come into their own and give a bit of confidence for their drivers. Front engine car in the Aston. He is going to have a very different balance to the car in front of Jones. It's all about how you make the car work for you, though. Jones, meanwhile, closing on Johansson. The gap about equal now between Johansson, Jones and Wenham. Down through the long left-hander at... Who on, isn't it? What's wrong with... What is wrong with maps? Yeah, it is Pooh. Don't know why they've got the name wrong on this particular track map. As... Yep. Wenham is now starting to fall away from the mid-engine cars. Up ahead through the twisty sections. Hopefully the Aston will gain that ground back as they come back up the hill. They're all looking very sane and safe at the moment. The Audi is definitely starting to look more comfortable on its boots. As the gap closes now to within a second, the Ferrari is starting to be able to see the Audi headlights in the rearview mirror. Actually, we can probably jump on board and actually see that. Yep, you can see in the rearview camera. Lights ablaze for the Audi R8 behind. And this is where it starts to... This is where a driver starts to earn his respect and his pay, if there is any, of course. The pressure that's going to be applied to the 333 now, with the Audi directly behind. And get a nice wide angle there. And the only person who can save Johansson here is himself. He needs to not overdrive the car. Look after the tyres, look after the brakes, look after the shell as well, and all of the suspension components. Don't throw it at the wall, don't throw it at the scenery, and don't make any silly mistakes while having the car behind slowly eking in. We're going to have a split 2 time as they come down towards La Fagna here, or we should. unless the split time remained completely static. Could be down into campus. There we go. 924, so the gap remains relatively static through the second sector of the lap. But the 2 Astons behind now getting close to each other and coming onto one of the more aero-dependent sections of the track. Will Wenham punching a hole in the air for Yates affects him pace-wise coming up the hill. He looks to the inside, but there's definitely no space for him there. But Wenham runs super wide, out braking himself massively. He's not going to get a very good drive off the corner, and then that drops him back into the clutches of Yates again. Just about keeping it tight as up ahead the 333 goes round the outside, expecting the attack from the 21 car, and that sausage curb is absolutely no joke, by the way. Do you run alongside it? But side by side they go down towards Thruot Rouge, and it was made easy for Jones there, seemingly able to walk past, given the place by Johansson running wide. And talking about pressure, having 2 Astons on your tail as well, now that you've lost that momentum from that poor exit off of La Source. And Aston looks to the inside. It's not going to happen this time. And now Wenham has compromised himself by taking that defensive line. And I'm sure Yates as well is going to be looking to make progress up the field as well. It's also worth having a look at Rucock in the 42 now drawing into the 11 of Johnson, who was hounding 12 of Barley before. It seems as though the pace of that Aston has dropped off for whatever reason, whether it's looking after the tyres or whether it's just pure pace. I feel like it may, in a race like this, just be pure pace. We've got to go back to the battle down the back of the field. As the Astons are going toe-to-toe. Oh, Wenham runs wide again, only just avoiding the gravel trap. That would have put a lot of pressure on his outside tyres if he had got some gravel on them. And now up the hill, the best sound you'll ever hear of GT3 cars, Formula 1 cars, any car really, uphill at full chat. Absolutely gorgeous. Somehow a bit lackluster in ACC though, as the 97 drives to the inside. Oh, the 333 having to take evasive action is gonna lose a place potentially. Gonna get a camera on that as Wenham well outcooks his brakes and drops a place to Yates now, who through all of that, as the 333 runs over that sausage curb again, brakes in a straight line, trying to straddle the 2 sides of that yellow curb, and loses a place again. But not to be outdone, Yates has... Not to be outdone, Yates completely loses it going through Radion, manages to couple it all back up and keep going, but has obviously got a slowdown penalty and has to concede the place again. Nice bit of action there for you as drivers make mistakes left, right and centre, putting pressure on themselves, putting pressure on each other. And let's face it, isn't that what racing's about? So in the space of 4 corners, The 333 lost a place, gained a place back. Yates has made a place, and Wenham lost it. In fact, Johansson lost the place twice by one being outbraked into the chicane, but then Wenham outbraking himself, and then secondly conceding the place to Yates in what was a really peculiar occasion where he was braking coming out of La Source, as if he didn't know whether the car was going to grip or not, or he didn't know where the 24 car was. Yates now looking to make up for that mistake at Eau Rouge. And 333 going defensive already. That's a really strange line from the Ferrari. As 5th place Johnson side by side. There we go. Into Eau Rouge. Oh, the Bentley just gives up the place. Good grief, that was very, very touch and go between the two of them. And now, because he had to brake, the Aston just gets a very, very brief reprieve from the 42 behind. Grewcock, in fact, was in front as they crossed the start-finish line. So that has been an ongoing battle for a while now. Oh, as the Aston's tyres finally give up. Just manages to keep it in a straight line. That is not going to do him any favours whatsoever. But perhaps this is what we're seeing, is the tyres starting to go off for these slightly less than ideally balanced cars. As they come across second split. First split, it seems. There we go. The times are returned to how we would expect them. As, wow, what on earth has happened there? 8th and 9th. It looks like Yates has... Oh no! Johansson has dropped behind the two Aston Martins, so what on earth... I've got to look at this. What on earth has happened here? Behind them there. Oh, was this... So he's in front of them... In front of the two there, coming up the hill through Blanchimont. Down into the chicane. The Aston is well within striking distance here, but not going to make it happen there. Runs very... As a 333, he stops at the chicane. Seemingly not wanting to fight with these two at all. That's very, very peculiar from Johansson. I wonder what's caused that. But that is -2 places then for Johansson, and we go back to the 42, hunting down the 11, not side by side this time, which means that they can both go through at full chat. The 42 now, confident in the rubber underneath him, can run behind the Aston Martin, but will even get an aerodynamic advantage with the Aston being so much smaller than the Bentley. That's a question for the ages, that is. On the brakes into Lacombe, and neat and tidy this time. You can see the black lines from last lap for Johnson, but it looks like that 42 is looking just a little bit more stable for Grewcock here. We've lost our leader. I was so busy commentating on the action going on track. Our leader has had a disconnect. The Bentley, who was running so well at the head of the field, has been ousted from the server. And, well, that was all she wrote. Regretfully. As Yates now ahead of Jones somehow has made up the what was 6-second gap. I think that may have been a mistake from the Audi, as he's got pace, does the 21 car. But somehow Yates is still in front. I'm going to jump to a very quick replay for that. As we look at Ed Jones already behind. In front now. What is gone on here? That's been a massive mistake. Oh, there we go. And a bounce off the wall as well. He's lucky not to lose his rear wing from that impact. Accidents at the top of Radion are very, very rarely that small. So a very lucky escape in the end for Jones. And he will retake his position. How he's got so... Oh, he must be running low downforce. How he's got so much pace in a straight line over the Astons. But Grucock still pressuring the Aston for that final podium position. As the rest of the field seems to be slightly more spread out. As they come into Le Combe, the gap halves in between the start-finish straight and Le Combe. And as they run out of... That doesn't sound... Malmedy doesn't sound right. I'm sorry. Nope. From what I can see, it is actually just 3 corners of Le Combe. 789. Le Combe wiggle from Grucock. He is pushing in the wake of that Aston Martin in front. Down through Pouan. And again, I tell you what, we'll go for a much more interesting angle as Johnson in the 11 car. There we go. You get to hear the Aston exhaust and watch as that absolute behemoth of a GT3 car lumbers around this beautiful backdrop of Spa. Up into the chicane, and very different lines being taken by these two front-engined, one ostensibly front-engined and the other definitely front-engined GT3 cars. And up into La Source. This is where Grucock has got seemingly an advantage on the Aston Martin in front of him. Through the La Source hairpin, you can see him noticeably closer. And this is what happened a couple of laps ago. The Bentley had the pace to get up in front, but discretion the better part of valor for the time being. Mistimed his exit of Radion. That is going to give the 11 a free pass this time round. So a slight mistake by Grucock. Gifting Johnson just the slightest of reprieve. Meanwhile, Yates is only 8/10 in arrears to Jones here. So the 21 car not happy with the impact that it has had at this part of the track a few laps ago. Don't know if it's necessarily affecting its straight line speed, but there is going to be a loss of stability in that 21 car, which Jones is now going to be fighting for the next 5 minutes and 14 seconds. This battle still very much joined for third position, but perhaps the attack ever so slightly waned for the 42 car. really is awful for Gutierrez being booted out of the serve like that. And the 11 car gets a massive kick of oversteer through the chicane. That's what happens when you go a little bit too tight. The Bentley couldn't make too much of an advantage because the car was sprawled across the track. But now looks to the inside into La Source. We know the Bentley's very good on the brakes, but the Aston is going to shut the door. There's going to be no way through there whatsoever. But the 42 car now very much sniffing a potential podium position. Will he have learned from last time? He's not going to go side by side through Eau Rouge. That is unwise. But will he get his line better than the 11 car this time? He looks to be about the same, but now he gets the aero wash from the Aston Martin in front. Uphill towards Lecombe. The 11 goes super defensive very early. Fantastically fair driving from Johnson here. Around the outside, the 42 goes slightly more confident on the brakes and on the tyres. And that is your position change for third place. Now, what can this Bentley do now that he has some clear air and some perhaps better tyres underneath him? You can see the way that the Bentley's driving. He's not using necessarily all of the road as he's going. He's driving very much within his limits in the 42 car. Down through campus. And then Stavelot, and up the hill they go. Really, really wide goes the Aston, trying to get the throttle down while controlling the oversteer, and I think that may well be the place exchanged, unfortunately, for the Aston driver. And as one battle completes, another one starts, as 4 tenths is now the gap between Jones and Yates, with Yates going faster than he has all race in the wake of that limping 21 car. Is there enough time though? We'll have a look at the leader, who is Williams, out on his own with Barley and a very lonely second position. 2 Ferraris leading the way. It really is a shame about that Gutierrez got kicked out. That's an absolute travesty. We have eyes on Jones and Yates as they come into the final sector. We've seen an Aston concede a place. Can an Aston make up a place as they come onto what will probably be the last lap, unless the leader really is very, very close. Actually, where is he? I think that is going to be the last lap of the race for all of our drivers now. With a minute to go, I don't think Williams can get around the rest of the track. It may have been different if Gutierrez had have stayed in the lobby, but that's not the case. 30 seconds to go, and this will be the final lap. So again, a very respectful, humble drive from Williams, doing exactly what he needs to do as he comes across the final split before the end of the race. A 2.8 second gap comfortably to Barley behind. And I'll tell you what, that Bentley is not getting away from the Aston how I was expecting him to. It's going to be the end. It looks comfortable, but there we go. As the timer goes to 0, almost on cue, Williams comes around the last chicane and draws up to the start-finish line. Lights flashing as he takes home another win for his championship hopes. Knocked the top step last time out, but that doesn't matter. He's got it back this time, and what a track to do it at as well. Barley will come home in second. Grucock will hold off the attention of the 11 car for the final podium position, and that 11 car put up a brilliant fight. The 75 will come across a very lonely 5th. Perhaps there would have been more action there had there been a Milliken without a drive-through penalty. Hines will come across the line in another very lonely 6th, and then 7th and 8th. Jones now all on his own with the 24 car. Now what has happened here? What has happened here? We've got to see this. As Yates putting pressure on the Audi, got close enough to be worrying him, and then ran out wide and had a massive spin. Lots of space behind. Oh, and a tap of the barrier as well. Just for good measure. Last lap of the race, it's always going to happen, but will come home in 10th. After all of that hard work, will come home behind Johansson because of that last lap mistake. Real shame there as we wait for Milliken to come across the line. Names not mentioned so far. Jones will come home in 6th, Wenham in 7th, Johansson in 8th, Yates in 9th, and bring up the rear in this beautiful 56 livery will be Milliken. Tyre spattered, a very hard and lonely race for him, but he got to the end. He showed the pace that he needed to. I think we lost. We've had a few people quit out the session, but that is going to conclude our race tonight as the cars all reset and line up. That is going to be it from SRO tonight, and it is going to be me. That is going to be it from me, Axsky, as well. Thank you very much for joining me. I'm sorry for the technical difficulties once again, which just are. That's how it is sometimes. Technology, isn't it just the greatest? I will see you again in 2 weeks, and until then, I hope you all have a fantastic week. Goodbye.